Okay. We are on with Michael Dorsey.
So I think one of the things that we need to understand is the way in which over the arc of essentially 2 decades since we were in Rio at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, participation for non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations has been curtailed and constrained. We've got a lot of examples of this. We've had a growing interest, particularly in the climate process and the climate negotiations, and really the Secretariat hasn't thought through how to deal with and how to accommodate the huge interest in this problem. So they have facilities that don't accommodate all the participants, all the registered participants. They don't have really good access to deal with people that want to participate on the spot, which they should readily be able to accommodate given 21st century technology. So there's a real big problem that unfortunately the Secretariat of the Framework Convention on Climate Change hasn't given serious sort of insight or reflection into, and they haven't committed even meager resources to get out ahead of the problem and to think of ways to productively not just accommodate, enable people to participate, but to leverage the growing, real, earnest desire to do something when governments are failing. And it seems like a minimalist thing that a secretariat could do in this process. It's pretty easy. The costs of doing so are relatively minor, particularly given the enormous technological capacities that we have in terms of social media, etc.
Thank you. And do you think you can talk about what's been going on, maybe historically and also here in Durban, regarding interventions?
Well, again, the issue around interventions is that there's a very unorganized or even disorganized process to enable and to guarantee that non-member states will have the right to voice their opinions. It goes really against the spirit of the approach that was laid down in Rio to involve major groups actively and to bring them into UN processes and multilateral processes. There was a big open spirit in Rio that was enshrined to basically give space for major groups in these proceedings in all the Rio conventions that include climate, biodiversity, certification, as well as the process around the Commission on Sustainable Development. And what we see here at the Framework Convention process around climate is really a poor access, the real inability to guarantee people are going to give, an inability to, Secretariat gives it, sort of, it's botched up. There's an inability to guarantee that those that are asked to provide inputs and interventions will get those opportunities. You're essentially left to the courtesy of the chair, to the grace of your highness, as if, and you're forced to wait around, and then you still may be cut off or not given the opportunity to give the intervention that you get requested to. And that sort of disorganization, that sort of lackluster attitude to the participation of major groups that have been long-standing invitees and have been long-standing sort of provisos of access to the process. It's unfortunate, it's disrespectful. It's easy to fix if someone gave just a few minutes of thought and consideration to how to make it work and how to improve the process.
And overall, what would be a fix or a way forward for civil society to be better engaged in this process?
Well, I think the Secretariat needs to decide whether or not it's going to enable all of civil society to participate actively in this process, or it's going to privilege certain categories and classes of civil society. Will we have a kind of apartheid system for access, which is what we essentially have now, where those that can pay a lot of money get access to whole buildings and whole facilities versus those that are sort of on the lower end or the margins of civil society get little or no access. And so first and foremost, we've got to come up with a commitment by Secretariat of what is the nature of access going to be. And once that gets established, then you've got to get some solid processes in play. It doesn't take a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of resources, doesn't take a lot of time. Right now we haven't seen the Secretariat commit even meager time, resources, or energy, or thought. So let's get on with it. It's easy to do. Let's fix a simple problem.
Thank you so much. And can you state your name, where you're from, and your organization?
Sure. I'm Michael Dorsey, professor of environmental policy at Dartmouth College in the U.S., and I was a member of the U.S. delegation in the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in Rio 20 years ago.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.